Congressman Huelskamp is a Tea Party freshman who voted against the Boehner budget. Congressman, thank you for joining us tonight. What are your thoughts? You're going to vote tonight. What are you going to do?
Well, I'll be voting no. I don't think this goes far enough. I'm looking for something that solves the problem long term, and it seems to be more of the Washington same old game. We're going to make only a few cuts, and we need to do much more.
So you feel that despite the fact there are cuts, that's not enough for you. You wanted to see something similar to the Ryan plan. What were you looking for, Congressman?
Well, I'm looking for something that would help avoid a downgrade, and $22 billion in cuts the first year does not do that. When we have a $1.65 trillion deficit, $22 billion is just a little bit of change, and we need a lot more in order to avoid the problem. And I think a lot of the concern has been about default. That was never going to occur, but the downgrade of our credit rating is a real threat unless we make serious structural reforms.
But Congressman, if your vote would cause a default, if your vote would cause this country to go into default and risk federal services and federal workers, doesn't that bother you?
Oh, yeah, I'd be bothered if we had a default. And that's what I said. I would also be bothered if the president withholds Social Security checks. As of today, as far as I know, there's sufficient funds to pay all of our obligations, and importantly, the president can prioritize and pay our creditors first. And that is what a default would be if the president refused to pay our creditors.
But when our credit ratings come down, I mean, come on, you're then asking us to really play a game of how long can we keep this going? How long do we keep the confidence of those in the markets around the world? Why would we act like that is not going to have an impact on the average person in your district?
No, I agree. A downgrade is going to impact us. And the credit ratings, S&P and Moody's are suggesting a downgrade could happen, and actually is very likely unless we make real cuts and real changes in our system.
You're going to help put it there. People in your district, the average person in your district, Congressman, is making 23%, make below $25,000 a year. This is your district. 23%, almost a quarter of your district. Can they afford for us to be playing political posturing games at this stage?
I agree, which is why I oppose this select committee. We've had 17 of those since 1982. They don't work. What works is congressmen and women and members of the Senate doing their job, and that's what I think we need to be doing. But I tell you what, those 23%, and indeed all of my district, they've been tightening their belts. They've been balancing the budget for the last 2 or 3 years, making the tough choices. They expect Washington to do the same.
Well, I tell you who hasn't tightened their belts. 1.5% of your district makes $200,000 or more, and if you would let the Bush tax cuts expire or support that, they'd tighten up some of their belts. It's hard to tell people making less than $25,000 a year to tighten up their belts while the guys on the other side of your district are running around in yachts and corporate jets.
Yeah, well, I'm in western Kansas. There are not many yachts out there, but most of those are small business folks that are creating jobs. But under this plan, it assumes the Bush/Obama tax cuts are not extended; they expire, and I think that's going to have a real harm and create some real tax uncertainty, in addition to the other uncertainties we have in the economy. It's been going south. You know, the first quarter we had almost no economic growth. Manufacturing reports are suggesting we're slowing down. We've got to make sure this economy keeps moving. I think everybody agrees on that. That's the way we get more revenue that everybody agrees with.
So, Congressman, you say that you understand the problem of the credit rating of the country goes down. You say that you understand the pain even people in your own district would have, but you're voting no tonight, despite the fact that your party has sat down, your speaker has gone through 3 rewrites, and taxes is off the table, something that a lot of us wanted. The president and the Democrats have leaned over backwards. Still not enough for you.
Well, it's not enough for the credit rating agencies. That is my concern. $22 billion in cuts, or actually over 10 years, maybe $900 billion. What people don't get, and what Washington doesn't tell us, is over the next decade they're going to borrow another $9.5 trillion. This is about only 10% of the problem if we want to get our balanced budget. So we got a long ways to go, and I'm afraid a downgrade will impact all of our constituents.
But at some point, don't you think the Republicans and the Democrats, for the good of the country, had to compromise? Your party has acted as though compromise is something that is poisonous.
Yeah.
Don't you understand that at some point We've got to do what is best for the country, and a lot of us on the other side of this is saying that we're hurt and pained by a lot. It seems like on the other side it's I want it all or I'm voting no, and I don't care. Let it go where it goes.
Well, the end result of this bill, if it does pass, would be the president would receive his debt ceiling increase, and that's a real compromise. I voted for cut, cap, and balance that would have given the president the $2.4 trillion increase, but also required this balanced budget amendment. I think the history has proven that Washington can't balance its budget, but we can't continue to borrow money and spend it and borrow it again and spend it again. We're on a wheel that has no end, and that is why I fear we'll have a downgrade of our credit rating, because frankly we're borrowing money to pay off our debts because we can't pay our obligations.
Well,
we can't do that in our own life, and why should Washington be able to do that?
You said history has taught us something. It did. It taught us if we had had a balanced budget amendment, Ronald Reagan and just about every president would have been violating the Constitution. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank
you. One thing, though, I agree with you about, I'm not sure about the super group of 12 because, you know, I'm a minister, and I know a guy that got 12 disciples once, and he couldn't keep all of them honest.